Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so since I started using the strongest planet, it's shifted what I've noticed. And I might have talked about this before, but I noticed a couple of years ago, yeah, uh, Saturn was crossing my descendant, opposing my ascendant, and I had two friends show up, both unexpected, who were Saturn's strongest planet, and they just showed up at my doorstep. You know, so I was like, wow, this is interesting. I'm having a Saturn activation, and someone who embodies that energy shows up.
It's kind of hard
So,
to hear you.
okay, let me see.
Sorry.
It's okay. Happens happens when you travel. Okay.
Is it possible to not use your headphones and just go right in the computer? Sorry.
Off right now.
I blame the sun in retrograde. Just kidding. The sun never goes retrograde.
Is that better?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, good. All right, so I was saying that since I started working with Strongest Planet, and I think anytime you use a system like astrology, it allows you to see things that you wouldn't see without the system. And so, looking at Saturn dominant people showing up at my house when Saturn is opposing my ascendant. Right?
Oh yeah.
And, and then today, the app I built, I show the strongest aspect of the day. And so I opened my app this morning, Venus, transiting Venus from the fourth, squaring Venus in the eighth to the degree. And I'm in Boston right now, and the fourth house rules hotels, right? And we pull up to my hotel, and I know because I've studied her chart, Serena Williams, by far, super tennis player, super strong Venus person, okay? And I know her, and she's right outside of the hotel.
What? You know Serena Williams?
Come on, I used to be famous, and she used to live in South Florida when I was playing for the Dolphins. So of course it was easy to bump into each other and not in the biblical sense, but know each other. So yeah,
What?
it was cool synchronicity.
That is
Really
so
cool.
cool. And another synchronicity is that Sam is a triple Venus chart. He's a Taurus sun with a Libra moon and a Libra rising.
Yeah, here we are. And which means it's a square, so it means I'm going to be yelling at you a little bit today. But I'm,
I can
I'm
take it.
I'm happily joking. Happily.
Be
Yeah.
careful though. Sam is a jujitsu coach, so he might take you down.
Listen, we're on Zoom, so anyone can talk shit digitally. So I'm safe.
Yeah.
I'm safe.
Nice. Well, Sam, Ricky, Sam. Um, Today we are talking. Now, Sam, I was trying to write questions before I got on here, but then I realized we don't really know you well enough for me to even like formulate questions. Because the first, in making a deep conversation, there's actually mechanics about it. The first thing you have to do is the second layer of conversation, which is unveiling like life facts, like what do you do for a living and all this. So I feel like we'll go there, and then we'll go into like the deeper states of conversation. So,
But don't we need the chart too? Because you know the chart, but I don't.
oh
So
yeah,
I
I
feel
don't
like,
really know Sam's chart that well. Sam, do you want to share your chart with Ricky?
Of course.
yeah, where were you born?
Norwich, Connecticut,
Oh yeah. Date?
May 11th, 1995, 5:54 p.m.
Okay. 95. That's the year I graduated high school. Hell yeah.
Oh my God, we have a tiny baby in the house.
Class of 95.
Um, so
And
Sam,
what time did you say? 5:50.
54.
5:54. Okay. Thank you.
Tell us all what you do for a living.
Monetarily, I'm a massage therapist and a body worker in general. I mainly in my practice, I'm doing a lot of deep tissue and assisted stretching. And then my love is in craniosacral and reflexology combined sessions that I mostly do for people outside of the personal training and jujitsu that I also do. The passion that I'm following is coaching the jujitsu, building the gym, and being a part of that community as well. And then combat sports and sports in general has always been like my biggest driving force. I love watching people do something that really helps them express like that energy, but also see people try to perform their best.
Interesting. So, we thought it'd be really interesting to have Sam on because you and Sam share an interest in craniosacral therapy, and also an interest. Well, you're kind of not that interested in sports anymore, but you do have fire Marses, and you guys can talk to each other about sporting things as well. So let's talk about this. In what ways do you guys think astrology informs body work at all?
Well, I think you're just as qualified to make a response, probably in some ways more qualified to make a response to that question than we are.
I wrote one of the books on it, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But I guess Sam, how do you use astrology in your massage practice, if at all?
I definitely feel in general it's a way to connect to people. But if we're talking about more of a physical sense during deep tissue, I find that like it's just about the connection to people. So uh, more heavily like water influenced people are going to like more of a flowing session. Earth people are going to like the deeper pressure, the more melting effect. Anything that sometimes other people may consider painful, they generally embrace that pain and embrace that pressure as something that helps them connect more to the therapeutic value of the session. And then somebody with more fire in their chart likes something that's generally feels more abruptive, like gua sha, scraping, or strokes with your hands that would be like petrissage, which is more of like a pinching and pulling type motion. Um, so it's about like the little bits that you do to introduce your touch to that area of the person that
Mhm.
I find that helps connect it because it is like a disarming when you first put your hands on somebody that you have to go through, especially with a new client. But as somebody comes in with whatever they're bringing into the session in this sense, you got to kind of like dissolve the layers of what they've brought into the session energetically from out in the world. And I feel like people pick up different energy based on their chart. They have a different capacity to carry energy that's unneeded for them into the session.
Wow, it's insightful. As one thing that comes to mind, especially at least the way I was trained in craniosacral, is the skill that we develop the most is listening with our hands. And what I found with the astrological chart, and Andrea, you helped me make these connections, is that you can feel the planets in the tissues.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
You know,
Well,
as an example, someone who has their sun in Taurus, you know, I might put my hands on their neck,
mhm.
right, to feel the solar energy.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, and so Sam, I love what you're talking about with the different tones of the elements because we've actually done like studies on this. Different elements of charts have different flesh qualities. Like if you look at, water charts, water is kind of rolling, and in the fat on water charts is more a rolling kind of gushy fat, I guess you could say, where earth weight is kind of like thick and dense. So that even the tissue structure of those different elements probably informs, I guess, how you would rub it. Or not, rub is probably not the technical term. How you would I don't know. Um
Contact.
what is it?
Massage,
Yeah,
Yeah.
touch,
this, yeah.
interact, engage. Yeah.
Um but yeah, I think like how they respond is definitely different. Now, Sam, do you use the dermatomes in your work?
In terms of the nervous system and like the nerve pathways leaving the spine, yes, of course,
Yeah,
big
yeah,
time.
yeah. Because from the astrokinesiologist I worked with forever, we actually map the chart into the dermatomes, and that's why what Ricky's talking about is like if the sun's in Taurus, we'd say you take light in your eye and you send it down the Ida and the Pingala, like the energy channels, into the dermatomes of the neck, and that's like how a sun in Taurus filters energy. So now we have to like examine Sam's neck. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, but I
Sorry.
think but I would. So in this chart, one of the first things I would do is examine the neck because I would notice that Mars is in a square aspect to the Sun in Taurus. And I'm speaking specifically from someone who was a professional athlete who of a really rough sport who knows astrology, so I can look and see when I had an injury and what was going on in the chart.
So wait, Sam is a Sun in Taurus, just for viewers. A Sun in Taurus, square Mars and Leo.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting because Sam was saying before we went live that one of the things he loves about jujitsu and sports in general is like the competitive nature of it, and I feel like that really speaks to having a Sun square Mars in the chart. Is like there's a competitive nature to the spirit. So
But yeah, but I want to just point out something specific here. Is you use the word love and competition, and at least from the Greeks and the Romans, that the goddess of love was Aphrodite, or Venus, and we see Venus in this chart in Aries, so love of competition, and square and trine the Mars in the 10th in Leo. So I think yes, right, Mars. Because to me, if it was just Mars Sun, right, there'd have to be certain experiences that had to be overcome early in life to get to the point where they loved competition. But with Venus in Aries making a trine to Mars, there's right there's more positive experiences to be had there too. Especially considering that, at least the way I do astrology, that Venus is the ruler of the South Node. So a kind of a deep memory of the love of competition.
So Sam, were there times in your early years where you got like bullied, for example? I mean, like with Mars
Oh
square Sun,
yeah.
there can be like aggressiveness coming at the person.
Yeah, bullied for quietness. I mean, I spent plenty of times in the principal's office. I was raised in martial arts, boxing, Muay Thai, that sort of thing. So I got my buttons pushed a lot until I reacted, and I didn't react with words. I reacted with violence almost immediately. But I was always forced in combat sports and training scenarios to be in classes with kids older than me and not have the choice to spar. So there was never any fear of bringing aggression to that level. The fear was, of course, the consequences, but I held back that floodgate till I couldn't, and I just reacted. It took me a long time to learn to use my words, and still I'm learning to use my words today without babbling and just continuing to just pour out. Um, and like the more I talk, the more emotional I get about things. And it's so hard for me because right now, like Ricky is very spot on with like my love, especially in jujitsu, is that there's a huge thing that we shake hands before and we hug after. We may try to kill each other in the middle, but there's a trust there also. No matter how hard, like I am dealing with a little bit of a neck injury right now, and no matter how hard someone grabs a hold of my head and tries to crank, I know at the end of the day that we are going to hug and everything's going to be all right. It can be as vicious, there can be as much back and forth as you want, but I have trust in those people around me.
That's awesome.
Interesting.
The other thing to point out, just in the conversation, is for me the area of the chart that has most to do with training is the sixth house. Right? This idea of a lineage of something is passed down to us, and the way it's passed down to us is us sitting in front of a teacher, taking in the information and working to perfect it. So again, the ruler of the South Node in the sixth house in Aries. You can see at least that one way this could express is through training. And the other thing is when I'm talking to someone about the seventh house, I'll often use the term sparring partners.
Hmm.
Sparring partners.
So I'm over here drawing Sam and the dermatomes because I'm like I have to understand this Sun square Mars. So okay, so like the Sun in Taurus, I've drawn some like solar energy in the C2 C3, which is that neck area. That's the Taurus, right? And then because it's square to Mars and Leo ignites like a fire around the flanks and the beating heart of the muscle. So like when and those are connected in your chart. So it's like when you get mad, you're like, huh, like that, like it, like right in that's the fire coming out these dermatomes basically, and the beating heart. So Sam's viciousness, he's just naturally kind of built to like a beast. You know what I mean? So if it poked, he responds like, oh, let's go, and so that created a combat fighter. I mean, I think yeah, I mean, I think putting forcing a child with this chart into combat sports is probably the one of the best remedies you could do because you're like get in the ring with someone your own size, kind of thing.
And it'll also probably wake up a memory because of the South Node connection.
Yeah. Okay, Sam, there were some spiritual things when we had dinner. You were talking about some kind of more spiritual ideas you had about bodies, and do you remember that piece that you wanted to bring up?
Um, I mean, I was thinking more of kind of the flow state, if you will, that feeling of connectiveness. Was there, Ricky, again, I'm sorry to bring it back to sports, but was there anything that you felt that you were chasing energetically and that sort of thing throughout your career in sports that you picked up that you're now filling that cup through your spiritual practices instead? Um,
Yeah, it's yeah, 100%. But to me, it's natural in the sense if you believe in a meaningful, orderly universe, that anything that happens previous, before, in the past is preparing us for the future. So I think anyone who's paying attention and alive, if asked that question, they should, in my opinion, say yes. And I would say the thing that I was seeking in football, and why I loved football so much, it was a place where you were encouraged, like everyone and everything in the building was encouraging you to get better. So a place where you could go balls to the wall, right, in the direction of improvement and getting better. Because when I retired at the age of 27 for the first time, and I found myself in India at an ashram doing yoga teachers training. And it was super intense. It was like a month, and we had to get up at 6 for better, get up at 5 to do breathing exercises. We went all day doing practices, and I noticed that everyone around me was complaining. And my experience was, this is just like training camp. So it's almost as if, and I'm not even going to say almost, it is that my career in football was preparing me for an intense spiritual life, right? Built on intense spiritual practices.
so my follow up to that would be is that where you're now expressing that intensity that you were outpouring through football? Are you now intensely involved in this work, and that's enough intensity for you to feel fulfilled in that
Well,
energy?
well, that's when you say fulfilled, and speaking to younger people, it's like when you're young, because you don't know yourself, you kind of have to compartmentalize. But for me, of getting older is you don't have, you know yourself better, so there's not, it sucks to compartmentalize. And
Yeah.
so as you can see, for me, it's like I'm creating a life where I can bring that intensity into everything that I do.
Yeah.
Yep, I feel that because that's where I'm as I learn myself and as I'm growing. That's where I find I'm struggling with. Like, say, when Andy met me and when we went to lunch, I was in the middle of 2 weeks of not doing jujitsu, just not being able to reach it, the holidays, that whole sort of thing. As soon as I'm not able to express that specific energy, oh, that hair trigger is back. Those more angry thoughts are back, and like I can go pick up sandbags, slam. I can hit the heavy bag. I can do other things, but I only have that one specific outlet right now that helps me
Well,
express that energy.
well, so I mean, in honoring Andrea, right, I appreciate remediation, and especially with bars. Okay, but also I have to put on the table is, why are you running away from those aggressive, angry thoughts? Right. To me, if I have to do something to keep something at bay and I stop doing it and it shows back up, maybe I need to listen and pay attention and work through something.
Mm. Well,
It's
okay.
more. Okay,
Oh, good.
go for it. Go for it.
Well, I have a long-winded answer, so to say your thing, I won't forget.
It's more of I know where those thoughts are generated from, and it's the narrative that I put upon myself as a child. So it's echoes of my previous self hate and something that I dispelled by mastering. So, in the interim, a little bit about myself before I started doing body work and diving back into combat sports. I got over involved. I was a professional in the cannabis industry. I was an advocate there. Jen and I still have and maintain a professional license. But I weighed 300 pounds. I let myself completely go. I went head over heels the opposite direction, and it was all ignoring those energy. So now I recognize those echoes as those are the old self hate thoughts that were driving me before, and I've grown a little bit past that. But then they start to kind of echo back up as like how I thought of myself.
So I would reframe that as not that you've grown past it, is you found a way to put it away to the side. Because
Okay.
the truth is, when we've grown past something, we don't have that negative response to it. We don't have it, and I'm not saying you should be. I'm just pointing out the process of how it goes. And like, to me, people, like, we're supposed to make self hatred bad,
Mhm.
but I don't know.
It's
I
a
don't
fuel.
know. I don't know,
Mhm.
right? But beyond the fuel, right? There are some things that I do that I hate that I do, and I can just keep beating myself up, or that can be motivation to do something different. Because change requires energy. You know, when my teacher talks about Mars, he talks about Mars, the highest expression of Mars, he says is the spiritual warrior. And if you have Mars square Pluto in a T square with the sun, it's like I understand, right? There's wounds around violence, wounds that you've received, wounds that you've given. But part of the Pluto story is about healing those wounds and getting to the other side. Right? You think of getting to the other side of something like self hatred. If you can get to the other side of self hatred, ain't nobody can tell you shit. Right? And when I see like an intense configuration like that in the chart, I turn up the volume, especially with Pluto, on the intensity of what you're here to face. And we can appreciate it might take time to develop the courage and the skills, et cetera, to face them. But if we were talking every time we talked, I would bring up the self-hatred. I would call it into the room and call expression of it.
Okay, my long winded professorial answer is that because Sam is full of energy in his dermatomes that are actually self abusive, Mars square the sun beats up the self. Like it actually puts a fire in your heart, in your solar plexus, that will attack the self. It's like having an autoimmune disorder emotionally, right? And it's lying there dormant. One of the things about squares, people always think they're bad, but they're actually lying dormant and they get cyclically ignited. So if you ran the moon around your chart, Sam, it goes around once a month, and every once a week it'll hit your square, and there might be a flare of like self hatred, or and it will go on for 16 hours, or this we could get really mechanical about it. So these are called paroxysms, which are like flares of a problem that once existed that come up later, right? And the thing is you running your energy in martial arts is what we call a symbolic substitution, where we have an energy that's problematic that we then run the chi into activities that honor the symbol. So martial arts has the word Mars in it. Martial arts, right? A martial art is a way to run martial chi, so that it doesn't sit there attacking the body. Okay, now I have a Mars square sun too, and it does attack myself. I do have self hatred tendencies. My Mars is in Cancer, so it actually hits a different part of my body. It goes in the rolling arm, and so like I do crocheting. I don't have it in Leo, so I don't do this like puffing up. I'm going to punch you thing. I'm like I'm going to crochet you a teddy bear kind of vibe. But the point is both of those are symbolic substitution for a Mars square sun and the self hatred that comes from them. And I think we do need to attend to this cyclically. So when you're on break from jujitsu for 2 weeks, if you do have a paroxysm of self hatred caused by a moon transit or some other transit, you would want to give yourself one of 10 other activities to run the chi through you. It could be hitting a heavy bag. It could be Mars and Leo could roughhouse is a very Mars and Leo thing. You know, uh, play a
Sex.
Oh yeah, Ricky's going to sex. What if the kids are around, Ricky?
But look at the Mars, right? It's an erect penis. Come on. Right? If you don't
Okay,
have a
it can
Mars,
be.
if you
The
don't have a
symbol of it
Mars,
is yeah.
I'm telling you, if you don't have a strong Mars, you can't really have sex unless you have the blue pill. Then you have to like medical
Unless you
medical
struggle for
medical Mars.
unless you. I have a medical Mars card personally.
Yeah. This is insightful. I have not a square, but I have Mars semi-square, my son. And the way my outlet early in life was using my head to bang into other people and score touchdowns.
Mm, yeah.
This is yeah,
But
and
Sam,
and
but
I
I do think in symbolic substitution we actually really do make lists. Like we'll say like 10 good things for my Mars square sun are XYZ. Like all these things feel good. Like playing a raging game of Magic the Gathering could be very martial, right? Like if especially if it's a savage game, with some burly commander decks. But yeah.
so but this Mars in the 10th house, it's the expression is especially maybe in teaching, but as an evolutionary astrology, like our starting point is what is the highest potential of this T square. And in symbolic substitution, I think if it's aligned with the highest expression, it can put us in that way. But if it's in aligned with, and I'm honoring this, I'm not ready to deal with this, I don't want to deal with this, then we do need to find a way to do something with it so it doesn't become destructive. As long as in the back of our mind we realize, oh, right, that we have that image of what is the highest expression of this. And the highest expression I think the symbolic substitution is practice for how to handle and hold the energy, but we still have to have it not necessarily as a substitution, but what does this Mars, especially in the 10th house, what does this Mars have to offer the community?
Yeah, okay. I want to talk about enlightenment theory a little bit. There's the building sandcastles theory. Okay, so the energy will beat the self up. Like here comes Sam. He's just full of chi, honestly, and like here it goes. It's like kind of thing. Well, if they say if you go on vacation to Hawaii, like adults lay on the beach and then their minds just race and they're like, oh, what do I need to do when I'm home because they're doing nothing. And the kids are on the beach building sandcastles, and the kids are very zen. And so the idea is that Sam letting his chi just beat him up, laying on the beach on a chair is not the way forward. He's got to build sandcastles with that energy, which is like like wax on, wax off, whatever that Mars and Leo wants to do. And so I'm with Sam, which is that in those 2 weeks off, he still has to move that chi by building some sandcastle. It can't be jujitsu coaching, but what is it?
I love the term symbolic substitution. It's my first time hearing that. But what I talk about as the expressive form, like as a broader categorization, rather than just like coaching and participating in martial arts, I always just call it the controlled adversity. Like I always love situations of controlled adversity, like jujitsu in the form that we have that trust that we're not going to hurt each other, but also like weightlifting or just things like that where you're really just pushing your body through a struggle.
Yeah, like you give it an exergenic force and then you push against that outer force and that. But I do like Ricky's point though that if there is a thought, a perseverant thought that comes up when you have transits to your sun Mars, what is it that your chart is trying to attack? Like maybe it is a behavior that you're doing that you have grown out of. So I do agree that refining of like being refined by fire is very Mars, like beating the self up and then getting better.
Yeah, and what I'd like to point out, and you we talked about it in the beginning, but you know, the sun, moon, and ascendant all in signs of Venus and Venus signs, and Venus is the planet of peace, especially the South Node in Taurus. The way we look at Taurus is the sign of peace, and people always say, I just need peace and quiet. So I see silence comes from Taurus, and the evidence there is communication. We talk about Gemini. Well, Taurus comes before Gemini. Before the words. Right? There's grunts, etc., but before the mind, before the mind.
I'm thinking of Galen. He was the ancient like doctory guy. He was like the anatomist or something, and he would say the mind's inclination follows the body's temperature.
Ah,
So like maybe Sam's inclination to beat himself up is when he's too hot, or like there's people who are really hot, like they get in a lot more wars like near the equator. There's like more fighting than near the North Pole and things like that. Like
yeah.
maybe Sam's like too warm. Do you get too warm?
Always, always. Like I have to work like this because anytime I'm up and I start moving, even though my room's set to 62 degrees right now, I will start sweating. Especially when I like energetically connect with somebody, I get so warm. Even doing craniosacral, my body temperature is just fine sitting in a 62-degree room,
You need an ice collar.
Yeah.
basically.
Well, it's tricky with the South Node in the seventh house because we could hear it, and I could hear it when you talked about the sparring partner, like the because the seventh house is a person that is facing us. That's why
Mhm.
open enemies is one of the things the seventh house rules, and both the sun and the south node are there. So a lot of significance naturally, right, given to the other person. And when I think of the North Node, it's about the direction that it would benefit us to head in that direction. And the North Node in the first house. I think in the first house is enlightened selfishness. You know, Uh, Scorpio in Scorpio North Node in the first house. Enlightened selfishness, moving through the world with some kind of intensity. Okay? And this intensity, this Pluto energy, can easily turn into self-hatred. Okay? Especially if we haven't liberated ourselves enough to think for ourselves. And so the insight that the way I do astrology brings to this conversation is the strongest planet in this chart is Neptune.
Oh, not Venus, huh?
Yeah, the Venus is. I mean, if we look at the strength of signs, I'm sure Taurus is going to be up there, but the strongest planet is Neptune. All right, and one of the pieces of insight that I'll bring to this conversation is Neptune is in a hard aspect, a square aspect to Venus.
Hmm.
And one of the things Neptune can share with the planets is it's an aspect with is idealism. Idealism. So, any examples in your life, experiences in your life that resonate with the idea of ideals about love, relationships, etc.
So- Sorry.
Because
I have a question.
what I'm getting at is if we idealize peace, love, etc., then sometimes we can have a difficult time with its opposite.
Oh, interesting. Like Sam just doesn't like that he's aggressive in some way.
If there's an ideal that I'm not supposed to be that way, and the Neptune is in Capricorn, right? And we heard right something about control, like it being controlled, because if it's controlled, that it makes it easier to fit our ideals.
Interesting.
And the second strongest planet is Uranus, and the Neptune and Uranus are conjunct in the third house. That's where the insight for me is. I think the power here is individuating Uranus, your perspective, your thoughts, and your ideas. Because the idea of self hatred, it doesn't come from us. Okay, the soul does not have the ability to hate itself. It comes from being around adults, either who hate us unconsciously, of course, or that hate themselves. Because as if you think about it, the first half of our life, our opinion about ourselves doesn't come from ourselves, it comes from other people.
Hmm. Wait, can I ask a totally different question?
Please.
Okay, so this is a weird question, but I just want to push the limits of things Socratically, which is through questioning. Okay, if Sam had self hatred and it was cyclical, could craniosacral help with self hatred somehow?
I think so. In the cranial that I do, the it evolves into what's called somato emotional release. And it's really getting to that point where the body and the psyche or the body and the soul meet. So oftentimes if you're working with certain tissue when this is being active and you're working on the tissue, maybe working on the spine, the heart, or any of the symbols that have to do with the self-hatred, is that memories, imagery, etc., that's stored in the tissue will start to come to the surface. And there's something about being in that, if it's a trained therapist that can hold space, there's something about touch and being in that safe space that allows it to be a little bit safer for these things to come to the surface. And we have a supportive person to be able to walk through them.
Yeah. Sam, what is your take on that? Do you ever use craniosacral for emotional things?
I fully agree with what Ricky's saying, and even to the sentiment that when performing work, that's another avenue that satiates that feeling for me. I like being of service and in that general response. I never feel those emotions, especially when I'm here. Partially being in my own space that I've designed, that whole sort of thing, the energy that I focus on, only walking through the door with. But it, both as participating as the giver and the receiver in craniosacral, I do feel a balancing aspect to it.
Interesting. Is it because I feel like okay, what yogis try to do is they take the pinch points presented by the celestial influences. You know, we get bent out of shape internally a little bit, and what yogis try to do is they like run their energy until they're at a state of calm and balance again. And I think that's why yoga is like a daily practice. Is like all the shifts happen, and we have to rebalance and rebalance. Maybe craniosacral could balance out the energy flow for it helps somebody, and then it might get out of whack again later, but do you think it's kind of like a balancing act of flow?
Well, that's part of it, but the nature of the flow is it creates a state, and especially if you're with someone else and you share that state together, it has more of a tendency to linger. And so if you have this peaceful state and you're aware of it, and let's say it lasts 2 days, right? That you have more access to that state than you had before. And so it is balancing, but the balancing, like you're pointing out, is only temporary. But if we tune ourselves to be able to recognize that feeling, then we have more access to it without the need of the technique.
In modern science, like almost like a neuroplasticity theory. Like
Yeah,
you're more inclined to snap back to that energy.
yeah. Because if you think of neural pathways, if there's right, because to me, if there's self hatred, right, and we can say the Mars square the sun, if there's self hatred, it is developed as a neural pathway. You know
Mm.
that the energy when we're not paying attention to it, it'll naturally move in that direction. But if we start to create other pathways and we keep creating those in yoga, they would say grooves in the mind, and we keep creating other grooves, right? The energy, when it's on its own, it's going to go towards the deepest groove.
Mm. Now I want to pivot to another because I'm just looking at connections between you and Sam, and I want to talk about like the coach student aspect in sports.
So good.
And what what is it? What makes a good coach student relationship? I mean, I think the astrologers could learn something from that.
Yeah. Image I have is the Karate Kid. Mm.
Okay.
Right? And if you watch it slowly with an archetypal eye, okay, you see when I talk about the sixth house, and to me the sixth house is lineage, coaching, it's all of this, training, it's all of this, and it's humble self-appraisal. Right? We always hear when the student is ready, the teacher appears. To me, that's a pure sixth house statement, right? And it comes from humility. So in the Karate Kid, both of them, the one with Jaden Smith and the one with Ralph Macchio, he gets beat up several times, you know, and then he finally humbles himself, and then they go to the teacher, and at least in the original version, Mr. Miyagi says, "There's one rule, okay? I talk, you listen." Okay? And I think that is an extremely important ingredient in this relationship because it's where energy flows downhill, right? And it's sacred, right? I'd even call it a transmission, guru, disciple, et cetera, et cetera. So it becomes extremely important to choose the right teacher, right? And to a certain extent, be able to surrender to the teaching.
Sam, what do you think?
I completely agree with that, and I feel as myself, like I've needed different energy and needed different support through different times of my life, even in the same activities. Um, but to add to almost like what Ricky was saying, like in that transference of just choosing and listening. When I first started with my professor, who I now coach under, um, I was his first like really attentful student. I was his first sign in when he came. He's Brazilian. He's now in Maine. He was coaching in Boston, doing that whole sort of thing. And I had to sit there every day and like, okay, now we spar. And it's me versus this grizzled black belt. And I have no knowledge of what to do. And it still hasn't gotten great, but now years and years into it, it's at least competitive between the two of us. But there's that transference of energy where you just get beat up on, and then you sit back and you listen to all the critiques that he has for you of everything that you did wrong. But to be able to assess that and look at it and now be like, okay, we built past this mark, we pushed past this mark. It's so important that you come into the space ready to learn and you engage with that energy, ready to learn instead of just seeing it as someone who's talking down to you, because it's not that at all.
Mhm.
Yes,
Yeah,
so good,
I feel
so
that with
good.
students is I can have really advanced students, but if they have a feeling of arrogance that they're fighting me, that's very different than if they openly actually want to learn. It's like they could even be older, but it's just it's the teacher's playing a role in the life of the student. The coach is playing a role in the life. Could you coach somebody who's older than you? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, all the time. When I was in the cannabis industry and I specifically designed dispensaries and like grow operations, I designed their standard operating procedure from the ground up. When Jenna met me, I was managing an entire location that like my assistant was 3 times my age. And he's been in the industry, I think 6 times as long as me at that point. And he's taking orders from me. It's always been a weird dynamic because I stepped into management at a very young age. So I feel it's now prepared me for this coaching role in my life. Um, because I try to connect with people any way that I can. Be it like, I mean, I experience a lot of people, doctors, lawyers, very successful businessmen coming in as students, and then just your average everyday blue collar worker, college students, that sort of thing. So there's a wide degree, especially in this growing sport of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, of people who are just coming out of nowhere trying to engage with the hobby. You got to make them feel safe, but also like you're going to give them attention that they can learn from.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, mm.
Yeah, I think there's something with that Sun Mars square. It's like the alpha-ness of it. I mean, I think coaches have a nice alpha energy, at least. Because in the power dynamic, I do think. I mean, what do you guys think about this? That is the coach supposed to have a more powerful?
Hell yes. There's no question. Sixth house is we say slavery, but the sixth house is the relationship between the master and the slave. So
Yeah,
the word master, right? This is the origin of it. The
yeah.
origin of it. It requires sixth house. Even if we think of mastery, and according to according to me, I don't know if it's possible to achieve mastery without a teacher. We don't have enough time on this earth. And there's a myth that tells this story. It's the myth of Theseus and the Minotaur. Right? The Minotaur, the half bull monster killing all these people. But the real part of the story is Theseus fell in love with Ariande, yeah, however you pronounce her name, and she gave him a ball of yarn so that he could find his way out of the labyrinth, because that's where everyone got lost in the labyrinth. And this image is really about mastery and a teacher. Is the yarn represents someone who has already been down the path and can keep you from wasting so much time and getting lost making wrong turns. So
Hmm.
even people that study astrology and they read all the books, I think at the very least they should find their favorite author and kind of gravitate to in that direction. But I do think it's important with astrology to find a teacher, because you can get the information, but I think the teacher shows you most efficiently how to utilize that information in useful ways.
So I'm really curious about the development theory part of coaching. So Sam, do you feel like you're a development, like you're developing people, right? So there's like pinch points in development where they've grown bigger than you've allowed them to be so far. Like tell us about the pinch points in the relationship between coach and student.
Well, the biggest thing in terms of student development or athletic development, the biggest thing that I'm going to say first off is just keep showing up. That's going to be one of the biggest things. If you stop, if you let that get in your head and you back down from challenges, or you don't even come through the door of the gym because you already have that in your mind that you aren't going to get better and you aren't going to develop, then it leaves no avenue for that. It's not going to happen through osmosis. It's not going to happen through watching YouTube videos or that sort of thing. But as a coach, past that, like, you need to know whether it's like kind of the mental thing that they're getting hung up on. Are they losing before they even can try to find a solution? Or are the solutions that they think they have not the right solution for the problem that they're facing? And if you take it back to something that Ricky said just previously, and what he was saying, it's like we talk a lot about you won't get better if you avoid the toughest challenge in the room. If you avoid the toughest sparring partner in the room, you're not going to get better. You're just running away from your opportunity to grow. You have to lose to grow.
Hmm.
If you only win 100% of the time, but you avoid taking on tough challenges, you are inhibiting your own growth.
Wow, that's a
I
good
think
one.
I would say if you avoid them too much, because sometimes you're not ready for them, and having a tough experience you're not ready for that crushes you, you spend more time healing than you do getting better. So I agree with you, right? You can't make a habit of it, but there is some wisdom in saying I'm not ready for this right now. That's the Saturn wisdom. To answer your question, Andy, it's a wonderful question. It's one of the main themes. For instance, if someone comes in the South Node is in the sixth house, is they have memory of being a student, and sometimes they get stuck in student. Okay, and I
Yes.
think very often it's the teacher contributes to keeping them stuck as a student.
Hmm.
Uh, and recognizing, because to me the sixth house, especially I track planets moving, especially the progressed moon moving through the sixth house and then popping up over the horizon. And the thing about it moves to the sixth house before it's visible, before it pops up into the seventh house. And so I think of, in the same vein of this conversation, the sixth house is about training or preparation, but it's a process, and there's going to be a certain point in that process where you're ready. You know, the apprenticeship, right? There's a certain point where you're ready, but it's a shift because you have to 12th house let go of being a student, right, and step into taking action.
It's you actually impressed something upon me when I met you, because for being such an excellent astrologer and an excellent just alpha human being, you were like very teachable. Like when I met you, because you and I met because you'd read remediation, and you were like, can you school me a little bit on remediation, and you actually let me actually teach you some things, right? And like you didn't have like a hubris about it. Like you were just like, oh, okay, but you and I did start sparring really quickly. Like it was very much like this is two equals in the room, and like and one. Yeah. So I thought that was it was really interesting. And then as soon as we got to the point where it's like Ricky has moved beyond this, we flipped the script to be like, let's be equals now. And like, so I do think good teachers let their students advance, right? Like there's something, some oppressive guru types would just keep the student down, but really there's this ladder effect that has to happen.
Yeah, I mean, my definition of a good teacher is the teacher's greatest desire is that the student zoom past the teacher.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So how much do you guys think that astrology should be used in the coaching student relationship? Like, okay, Sam, I don't know how much you know about composite charts, but should we be checking the composite charts or the synastry between coaches and students?
Oh, I, I mean, knowing what I know, I couldn't imagine coaching someone without that information because I would be aware of how inefficient it is. And not that a chart gives all the answers. It has to be interpreted and viewed through the lens of how it's actually showing up in the person. But if you have that cheat sheet or that shortcut, it's just so much more efficient. And you can get clear about what is this person actually most receptive to receiving from me, and what are the things that are going to be the hardest for them to receive. Then with that information, I can modulate.
Sam, what do you think?
For myself as a student, I definitely seek a wide variety of mentors and as much different energy that I can pull from. But like through my studies of like stoicism, I may take them as lessons that I implement for myself or lessons that I kind of steer away from to try to avoid certain pitfalls. As a coach, I definitely feel like I would rather invest my time if it was of a resource that was limited with somebody that I more deeply connect to, especially when we come into talking about astrology and body types and jiu-jitsu. There are many different games that people can have, and games is like your subset of skills that you use or your A game plan versus your B game plan. So it definitely is like looking at astrology to find the different, whether you're going to be more isometric strength, you're going to be more of an explosive athlete, you're going to be more of a thicker body type, or if you're going to be more of an endurance athlete that's going to try to take some blows so that way you wear out your enemy and you're able to then kind of have your endurance be your number one A grade thing. I always tell a lot of my students, like, that doesn't sound a lot like my game. That sounds a lot like Coach Brendan's game. You should talk to him about that. So you have I'm not a little guy. I don't mean to call him little. He's not little, but he's smaller than me, and that's for sure. He uses a lot more of a speed style. I call myself the wet blanket. I will make myself feel 100 pounds heavier than anybody else. If you let me pin you and get you down, I'm going to suffocate. That is
That's
my
so
number one thing.
Taurus. That's so Taurus.
Taurus. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can
yeah,
hear it. I can hear it.
yeah. And I just, as soon as I get in that, it's funny because I feel like a snake, but then there's certain points where I just feel like I'm so much heavier than anything in the world. And I talked a little bit about to Andy about this when we had dinner. Just there's this point, and it's that it almost brings a smile to my face. I can feel when I start to break somebody emotionally, their mentally, their will. And it's not something that's going to be lasting. I know when the round ends, they're going to be fine. But that is the best victory, even more than a tap, even more than that just feeling that finally give up, and you're like, come on, bud. Like, I'm not going to submit you. I'm not going to let you get away from me now. I'm going to make you sit here and make you breathe and make you like really feel it. It's kind of like that thing that you need to kind of do it to your students so they appreciate your skill set. But also, if somebody doesn't vibe with the way I implement that energy and I put my game plan on them, and they can't learn that game from me, they're not able to then connect to my style of like, I don't mean to go into the technical terms of the sport, but like passing guard and that whole sort of thing. They aren't able to connect to it at all. They can't use their body like I use my body. So I do feel it's important.
Dude, Sam told me that he can feel the aura of people he's doing jujitsu with, and he can feel when their aura breaks.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I wonder if you ever apply that, your style, to yourself. I talked about the spiritual warrior and this idea of self-hatred. It's not hating ourselves, it's hating part of us, hating the parts of us that are not ourselves, so that we can apply those techniques to break their spirit and break their will.
No, you are completely right with that, because I'm not saying that those thoughts to myself now. It's that initial thing. And then I recognize that's not my voice. So it is a fuel to that fire that I want to go out and put it on to somebody else. I don't know how else to say it. Working the heavy bag, it's not allowing me to pour off that energy out of the cup, because I know it's not my thought. So the initial negative emotion that I inherit from that is the fact that I'm letting that still get to me. I'm letting what was put onto me by other people still echo into my life today, rather than having some soundproofing that's now not letting that penetrate everything that I've built.
I do have to say it's really fun to watch Ultimate Fighting and the charts of the fighters and watching their fighting styles. Like, according to their Mars, like if they Mars and Taurus, they'll just headbutt you. If they have Mars and Gemini, they like slap you. I mean, it's really interesting. Okay, sorry, Ricky.
No, it's. Did I forget what I was going to say? No, yeah, again, for one thing you said earlier, the pitfalls, right? And again, yes, I am suggesting playing with this idea of, instead of avoiding the pitfalls, to go towards them.
Yes.
Because if you go towards them, you just step over them. If you go away from them, you don't ever know when you're going to trip and fall into one.
The only way out is through.
It's so Marsian. It's so Mars, right? And just playing with that idea of recognizing where you have this I want to avoid, I don't want to deal with, and thinking, just being curious about it, because it seems so automatic, like almost built into the philosophy or the story. And that's, if Saturn was the most dominant planet in your chart, I'd say keep looking out for those pit holes and avoiding them. But that Mars in the 10th, right? Mars in the 10th is not really good at avoiding pitfalls.
All right, you guys, time out. Time is up. But Sam, we want to know how to find you if people want to take Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from you or get a massage or whatever you do.
Definitely. My socials, both Instagram and Facebook, are Muscle Mechanic Maine, and then musclemechanicmaine.com is my website. And then Gracie Barra is the organization that I coach for. But if you find me at Muscle Mechanic Maine, you'll see plenty of their content on my page, as it's part of my brand also through the coaching and through what I do for personal training or bodywork and recovery in general.
Okay. Well, thank you for so much for being on the show. I think it's getting to know you, and so maybe if you are on in the future, we'll know more kind of your subset and your interests. And so, yeah, Ricky, any last words?
This was great, Sam. Thanks for coming on and sharing your story. And it's a great lens.
Definitely. And I had one thing for Ricky, just super quick, if you can give me an abbreviated answer. One thing, because I'm not, Jenna's my wife, I'm not fully as versed in astrology as Jenna is at all. But one thing that I've been tracing is mercurial events and how they affect sports in terms of the home field advantage. You really notice when Mercury's very strong in the current sky, that noise and that how the communication is affected by a louder stadium down when it comes to the field, and how that communication then flows through in the play style. just as an interesting, if you've noticed anything. But that's something I love stats. I
Sam, we're
love
gonna have to
placing
have
some
on
money here
for a
and
whole
there.
other show for that one. That's
Yeah. But I just wanted to
cool.
put that in your realm in case you do happen to notice anything.
I'll definitely be looking. I'll be looking from now on. Thank you.
all right, you guys. We gotta close the room. Thank you, Sam. Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Let's see you next week. All right.
Alrighty.